Mic check one,
Yo,
two.
get out of here with them weak ass shoes, yo.
Balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love.
What's going on, guys? And welcome back to another episode of Balls Deep. Today, we're going to be talking about some NFL news. Obviously, there's big news with, the offseason. There's been some trades being made, some people getting franchise tags, some people signing deals. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Before we get into it, though, as always, like, follow, subscribe on all platforms. Hit that like button. Show us some love before we get started in this episode. But with that being said, let's get straight into it. Probably one of the biggest things to happen throughout the NFL this week is Dak finally getting paid. Dak Prescott signed a 4-year deal worth $160 million with a $66 million signing bonus, which is actually the most ever. So we have the details here, Devin. I don't know if you want to break it down and get into what you think about it, and
Yeah.
then I'll yeah.
He's due a record 75 million in the first year of his contract. I believe that's including the signing bonus. I could be wrong. And then his first 3 years average out to around 42 million per year, which I believe is second most to only Russell Wilson. So he's getting paid big top dollar, and it also saves the Cowboys 15.5 million from them just franchise tagging him, because now his salary cap hit, instead of it being 37.7 million if they were just to franchise tag him, now that they signed him to a long term deal, it's 22.2 million, which saves them around 15.5 million that they can allocate elsewhere. And with teams desperately needing cap space because the cap hit is down 8% from last year, and that's due to the revenue loss due to the pandemic and things of that nature. So it's around, the salary cap is around, I think, 182 million, give or take. So teams are freaking out, and there was a report saying that there was going to be a bloodbath, and we'll get into it some more later on in the episode, but there sure is a bloodbath that has already started. So with the Cowboys, this 15.5 million is going to save them from it's going to save them from either cutting a few players or even just being able to go out and sign some additional pieces to that team. But I say Dak needs to thank Andy Dalton at all costs, because when he went down and Andy Dalton took over, and whomever else took over for Andy Dalton when he stepped out, the play of that offense took a hit, and it was noticeable. So Dak needs to go get him a watch, do something, because he's the main reason why he got paid. And I'm happy for Dak, even though I'm a Giants fan. I'm happy for him because he definitely did deserve this. We talked about this on the podcast in the past, that Jerry Jones needed to stop playing games and stop playing with this man's pockets. And he kind of caved in at this point because he realized how valuable Dak was to that team. And with, I forgot what I was going to say, but with Dak, is he's immediately secured. He wanted a 4-year deal so he can get another contract or become a free agent around 31, 32 years old. And they wanted to give him a 5-year deal, and he got exactly what he wanted. He got that 4-year deal. So, hey, kudos to him. But what do you think about the move?
No, I gotta agree with you on in the sense that Dak. obviously Dak worked hard for this. I'm not trying to take away from Dak, but he did get lucky in the sense that Dallas Cowboys didn't roster another quarterback that was capable of really bringing that team anywhere. Because any other time in sports, or any other time in sports, a guy like Dak or just a talent like Dak gets injured in a way that he did, and there could be some uncertainties of like what he might look like after such a tough injury like that. You probably won't get paid. However, what Dak was doing for the Cowboys before he got hurt, and clearly what the Cowboys weren't capable of doing when he was gone, uh, it kind of almost forced Jerry's hand to be like, all right, we need to sign Dak. Um, I have no doubts that he'll return and be the same quarterback that he was before. Um, and I mean, same. I mean, I'm a Giants fan. I hate the Cowboys, but I am happy for Dak. I mean, um,
He's a likable guy.
he has, yeah, he's a likable guy. He's done a lot for that franchise. Um, you know, so I do think that is his home. I don't, however, know that he was worth it after the injury. Um, he hasn't really gotten them past that
Yeah.
point yet, because we also have said in the past that we do think they've had talented enough rosters to do something, and they haven't. So that becomes another issue and something you have to solve when Dak comes back now. So if he's not capable of finally taking them to that next level, then he won't end up being worth it, obviously, because you sign a quarterback for this much money, um, kind of almost him ensuring a Super Bowl. So clearly, that's going to be important within these next 4 years, is he has to deliver at least one, because right now there's probably a lot of doubts on him. The fact that he wasn't able to do it pre-injury, and the fact that we won't know what he looks like after. So, but it's definitely is well deserved, just for the simple fact that he has done so much for that franchise, and clearly they couldn't do much without him. So,
I mean, now it's all up to the front office and the coaching staff and Jerry Jones as the owner, because you got your quarterback. You don't have to worry about your quarterback, but now you have to protect your quarterback because your offensive line is depleted, and it's not the offensive line that they used to have. Like Tyron Smith, he's got back issues. Zach Martin, he's got back issues, and those are their two best offensive linemen. So now you got to put an offensive line in front of him to give him time. He has the weapons. There's no doubt that he doesn't have weapons. But then you have to fix that defense. That defense, you put out an average defense at best, you'll make it to the playoffs and make some noise. Just look at the Chiefs last year, not this past year, the year before when they won the Super Bowl. Their defense wasn't the greatest. Like all season, they were about average at best, and then come playoff time, they balled out, and that's what helped get them over the hump. They just need an average defense at best. But we've seen with Dak and without Dak, their defense is horrendous. So they need to make some moves and
mm,
fix that side of the ball in order to even have a chance. But I want to pose this question to you before we move on. Within these he signed 4 years for 4 years. Within the 4 years, what do you think Dak does with the Cowboys? Like, does he get them to a Super Bowl? Does he get them to an NFC Championship? How many playoff appearances do you think he'll have in these 4 years? What is it? What's your guess?
I don't know. I mean, because with or without Dak, I agree their defense hasn't been great. Um, but there was a year where they had all the talent in the world on the defensive side of the ball, and maybe just not the right staff. I mean, they've had the talent on defense. Just because it hasn't looked that way, they have had the talent on defense. So clearly, it might just be the fact that maybe they're not putting the right staff in place for that defense. I don't know. So it's not that necessarily don't have a distrust in Dak. I think with the right roster, and the Cowboys aren't far away because there are a few, maybe signings or even just a really good draft away from getting back there, especially with a healthy Dak. But it maybe isn't just, it maybe isn't my disbelief in Dak as much as it is just my disbelief in kind of almost the same thing Stephen A. Smith says. It's just an accident waiting to happen. It doesn't seem like, regardless of the roster they put up there, it doesn't seem like they can do anything with it. And it's kind of, I mean, as if I were a Cowboy fan, I'd be frustrated. I'd be fucking scared because it almost seems like regardless of the product you put on the field, you just can't
Yeah,
get
there's
it
always something
done.
wrong.
So like I said, it's yeah, and it doesn't. It's not so much my disbelief in Dak. I think has enough. Even though I don't think he is the most talented quarterback in the world, he's a smart guy. And he plays the quarterback position well enough to that if he has the right pieces around him, he could probably win a
I mean, he's
championship.
he's the best quarterback in the
But
division at the
like
moment.
100%. And other than that, you know what I mean? Like aside from like I said, the Cowboys being that accident waiting to happen, kind of what they're known for, it's also there are also really good to beat. You know what I mean? So they just that alone, the chances of him beating a Patrick Mahomes led Chiefs or even the Bucks again, if they re-up with Tom Brady and try to, go for a repeat. The 49ers next year when they come back and they're fully healthy because the 49ers were a shell of what they were previous last year or the year before this past year. But they're a talented roster. It was mostly due to the fact that they couldn't stay healthy. So when they get their
Yeah.
guys back, they're going to be a great squad. I mean, we still don't even know where Deshaun Watson's going to land. There's rumors that Carolina might go after Deshaun Watson. And I think, Carolina, I mentioned last year in my breakdown of that NFC South that Carolina would have a lot better season than maybe people had hoped. I thought they were a very up and coming team. I told you I'm very high on them at least for the future. And that was me saying that with them being led by Teddy Bridgewater. So I can just imagine, you know, they're leaps and bounds ahead if they added Deshaun Watson to that already fairly young and talented team, which is, like I said, about the Cowboys, is a similar feeling I have with the Panthers, especially with Deshaun Watson, is they have a good offense, but they're probably a few pieces and just a really good draft away from competing. And so there's going to be some good teams, good repeat teams from previous years. There's also going to be a lot of good new teams that are just now competing. I mean, so it's going to be tough to win one in 4 years, but I think with the right team, he can do it. It's not impossible, but it's just
It's
tough.
definitely not impossible.
No, not at all. But
It's, but so for me, I think within the 4 years they'll have 1 to 2 playoff appearances,
mhm,
and the reason why is I don't. They're you can argue that they're the best team in the division at the moment. You can argue that,
yeah,
but we know for sure that he's Dak is the best quarterback. They have the best
mhm,
quarterback in the division at the moment. So if the doubts start to creep in when they talk about the defense,
yeah,
because you can argue that they have the worst defense in the division,
yeah,
and they have the best offense in the division. That's without a doubt when Dak's playing, but they have the worst defense in the division. That's almost like the Giants. The Giants have the worst offense in the division and probably the best defense in the
yeah,
division. It's kind of polar opposites. You're not gonna when you're on the opposite sides of the spectrum, you're not gonna get
yeah,
far. So they need to be able to put out an average defense at best. And I think 1 to 2 playoff appearances is reasonable within the 4 year span because there really hasn't been a repeat divisional winner in that division since the Eagles in I think around '04. They were that was the last team in the division to repeat as a division champ. So not saying they can't get wild card, but there's the NFC is very talented. So wild card, whether you add another wild card spot, is difficult to get in itself.
yeah,
So your best bet to get to the playoffs is the division. To win the division, 1 to 2 playoff appearances, I think, is realistic.
yeah,
And what they do with those 1 to 2 playoff appearances is honestly up to them. They could possibly make it to the NFC Championship. It just depends on those moves that you're talking about. Like they need to make those moves in whether in the draft, free agency. They need to make moves. Period. Now Super Bowl, I won't go that far. I don't believe in them as a team as of yet. But it's like you said, it's not impossible. They can
yeah.
definitely do it.
No, I agree, and I can see the playoff appearances. I could definitely see up to two playoff appearances, maybe an extra one because like you said, there has been no repeat winners in this division. But if there is any team that I think is talented enough, especially with most of the teams in this division being very young and kind of in almost a stage of rebuilding, it is the Cowboys. They are capable of doing it. It's just more so in the sense of there's kind of a distrust at this point between NFL watchers and the Cowboys because it's really hard to gauge kind of how serious they are. And I mean, even then, I mean, I completely agree. Like you said, Dak is definitely the best quarterback, but it's arguable that they're the best team. I mean, we saw what the Redskins were capable of doing, even though they didn't have the greatest record. And I'm not expecting them to make a huge leap, much better this year. But
they were probably the most balanced team in the
yeah,
division.
they
That's why
were a
they won.
very balanced team. I mean, even now the
Not very,
Eagles,
but they were the most
the most
balanced
balanced,
out of
yes, yes.
out of the teams that sucked. Because our
Definitely.
division
And
was
then
terrible.
you also have yeah. And then you also have the Eagles though, who if they
It's a
finally
shit
figure
show.
out their quarterback situation, which it's almost seeming like they will because they're finally leaning towards going with Jalen Hurts. So at
Hold on,
least
hold that thought. Hold that thought. We're
okay,
going to
my
that
bad.
next.
We'll
We're
go
going to
to
that
that next,
next.
but you know what I mean? I'm just saying in the sense of these teams are finally maybe starting to figure themselves out. So if the Eagles are finally deciding, okay, we're going with Jalen Hurts now, they can actually at least lead towards a plan rather than before when it seemed like they didn't have any sense of direction. So
Yeah, but they're a shit show just
they are.
because it's not just the quarterback situations.
Oh,
Financially,
it's the
they have
franchise.
one of the worst cap situations in the league. I think it's close to the Falcons and the Texans, like and the Saints. Like it's bad.
Hmm.
So then, and that's with the quarterback on a rookie deal. Like they're paying Wentz. I think they have like 30 million in dead cap. They're paying him 30 million to not even play on on their team, which is mind-boggling. Their defense is depleted because they need to rebuild that. Their offensive line is depleted. They have no weapons. It's a shit show.
Yeah.
I'm expecting the Eagles to finish last in the division this upcoming season, and I'm just coming to that conclusion now, as we record, because originally I didn't have them finishing last, but the way I'm looking at the numbers and everything going on, I think they're going to finish last.
Oh,
But
definitely.
speaking of the Eagles, their owner Jeffrey Lurie was influential. So this came out that he was influential in the Jalen Hurts selection, and he wants Hurts as the starting quarterback in 2021. Um, and the reason being is he's already instructed his staff to prioritize Hurts' success, and he doesn't want there to be a true competition for the starting quarterback job. So he's made it clear to the coaching staff, Howie Roseman, that he wants everything possible done to help Hurts be successful in 2021. And he'd rather, that than adding another quarterback to, seriously compete for the job and have another quarterback competition on their hands that they just, finished with Carson Wentz, getting rid of Carson Wentz. So, if I'm being honest, I think he's right in making that decision because I've been here and said that like their best bet the fastest way to rebuild is to commit to Hurts and rebuild around him rather than drafting another quarterback and setting yourself back. Like they already have too much holes on the roster.
Yeah.
But I'll let you talk about what you think about that. But I then want you to answer like, do you think he crossed the line or he stepped too far in using his power to basically force them to draft the quarterback and now forcing their hand in a sense to go in a certain direction.
No, I mean I think he's the smartest guy in that building. Um, and I mean he's the owner. Ultimately, obviously you hire these people to, make these decisions for your football team. But I mean, if you're the owner of the team, I feel like that decision that you make is final. And honestly, I completely agree. I think the best way for the Eagles to rebuild, the quickest way for them to, get back to a place where they're happy with, um, is to just stick with Jalen Hurts and build around them like you just said. They have way too many holes to go and waste another, top pick on getting another quarterback to have another quarterback competition. I mean, it really just doesn't make sense to go out and do that when you just did it. So I mean, honestly, if they really had any issue with it, I'd just get rid of him because at that point, if you draft a quarterback, obviously I know it was Lurie's had the most influence on it, but if you draft a quarterback to kind of hold the QB competition and say, okay, we're going to move forward with this next guy, and then you just still don't move forward with that next guy who clearly won the QB competition. At that point, it's like, okay, then you just don't know how to draft. So should you even be running this team? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I just think at that point, it's like you got the guy that that you wanted. Use your picks and build around him. You got a young receiver in Jalen Rieger who we really haven't seen like that because he wasn't healthy last year. He's a great talent. I don't think people are. I don't think the Eagles are as dumb. Obviously, Justin Jefferson turned out to be a stud, but just like Jalen Rieger said, he was who he was supposed to be. And just because Jalen Rieger hasn't been given the opportunity to kind of display that yet, doesn't mean that it's a bad draft pick. We haven't even gotten through a complete like season or even the first 3 or 4 years of his career to say that. I mean,
Well, not to cut you off, but I do think it was a bad decision. Not because of what he's done the
yeah,
rookie season. I'm talking about as a prospect. Jefferson fell into your lap, and he was a better prospect, in my opinion,
no,
at
I completely agree
receiver.
with that.
I'm just basing it off of like their being prospects. What they did in the rookie season, yes, it's made the decision like even worse.
Yeah.
But like you said, Rieger didn't really play, and when he did, it wasn't much because he was dealing with injuries, and they also had a depleted offense in comparison to the Vikings. The Vikings were clearly a better situation offensively for a young receiver.
100%. And I mean, even just the court. I mean, what we've been talking about this whole time, the quarterback situation. You don't even know who's going to be your quarterback from week in and week out. Who's getting reps with this guy? He's a rookie. His first season through a pandemic, and he doesn't even know who his quarterback is, and he can't stay healthy. I mean, at this point, I just think the Eagles need to move forward. They need a sense of direction. I think this is the direction. I think if they waste any more time on more quarterback competitions and you know, more time in the lab, it's just going to delay them even further.
Yeah, for sure. And the reason why I asked you about do you think he overstepped his power or whatnot is because Dan Schneider made a similar situation or decision when he went out and basically forced Jay Gruden and his staff to draft Dwayne Haskins. And they didn't want Dwayne Haskins. So we see how that turned out because you have a young quarterback who feels unwanted. And now you're making him look bad and now his career could very well not saying it's over, but now he had to leave and get a fresh start elsewhere. And then we also seen a similar situation in Arizona when they got Cliff Kingsbury, and they drafted Kyler Murray when they already traded up in years past to get Josh Rosen. So that's a little different because they had the first pick, but the Eagles have the sixth pick. So if they ultimately decide to go quarterback with the sixth pick, Jalen Hurts was a second round pick. So how do you come to the conclusion that the number six pick selection it doesn't like he's not better than Hurts or in a quarterback competition or to say less. Like you're gonna have to get rid of one of them, and it's most likely gonna be Hurts because you invested more into this number six pick quarterback or whoever the quarterback you would have selected with the number six pick. So I don't think that's the smart decision. I think the best decision for the Eagles is to trade back and collect draft capital, and that's also helping them financially because they pay whoever they draft if they trade back less than they would at number six. But should they stay at six, people are pinpointing a playmaker. And yes, I know in our mock draft I drafted Kyle Pitts, but that was the only reason why I drafted Kyle Pitts is because of the versatility, and what he can bring to the table for an offense that's depleted. I mean, he can fill in for Ertz, and he can fill in as the number one receiver opposite of Jalen Rieger. But it wouldn't surprise me if I know I said Roseman thinks out of the box, and it wouldn't surprise me if they dropped a quarterback. But with this news about Lurie, kind of forcing their hand, it wouldn't surprise me that they go Rashawn Slater from Northwestern, the offensive tackle. Peters is done pretty much. Like they only brought him back to play guard after Brandon Brooks went down, and then when they needed a tackle, they had to pay him more to even allow him to play left tackle. And so I think Lane Johnson's the right tackle. Bring in Slater, who said he's willing to play guard if it's best for the team. He ran, I think, a 4.8 in his 40 time in his pro day, which is crazy. He's putting up similar numbers in terms of his test as Tristan Wirfs, which was really good last season, and he has good tape. He played Chase Young, he played Chase Young well, so he's got the tape, and I think his stock's only going to rise. I know we said Sewell is really the only good offensive lineman worthy of a top 10 pick, but I think his stock is rising, and the Eagles might pull the trigger on Rashawn Slater.
Definitely. I mean, I can see that. Especially because I did see his pro day, and I saw the same numbers you did. I saw he, had a really amazing pro day. And I was actually starting to see, maybe hoping, instead of going for wide receiver at 11, the Giants might go for Rashawn Slater after seeing,
I wouldn't mind that.
After seeing the pro day that he had, it'd be a lot more worth it to grab a tackle there at 11, especially if now Slater, who, like you said, could creep his way into the top 10 if falls in our lap at 11. I'd love to have him. But
the Cowboys are a good landing spot for him too.
Definitely. But yeah, ultimately, I don't think because I believe this is the original question, but I don't think he overstepped at all. I just think he knew his team needed that direction, and like you said, now with your team depleted so much, I mean, you could almost really do anything, especially with that, like you said, on that offense. I mean, you could go Pitts, you can go Slater. I mean, there's plenty of offensive talent in this draft, from receivers to to tackles and guards to tight ends. So
yeah, and that's exactly why I think people are so quick to say that they're going to take receiver in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Why take receiver when the class is deep?
Yeah,
like, you can draft a receiver in the second round. Like, there's a Terrence Mitchell if he reaches the second round. There's receivers that might fall to the second round, like Elijah Moore. Rashad Bateman might fall, even though I doubt it. You got Kadarius Toney from Florida, like, who people are comparing to Percy Harvin. Like, there's talent, and you can definitely draft a receiver in the second round and go Rashawn Slater, or even fill one of your other needs, like get a Michael Parsons or Patrick Surtain or Caleb Farley. Like, you have so many options.
So many options, especially with the pick that early in the draft. I mean,
yeah. So, and that's why I feel like they tanked, quote unquote, so they can get more value in their pick, so that they can trade back and get more picks for it. Because it's more likely that a quarterback needy team will trade up with them, and they'll be able to collect more draft capital, get more day 2, day 3 picks to fill those needs. But to shift over, it is franchise tagging season. The franchise tag deadline just recently passed, and there was a handful, 2 handfuls, worth of players that got franchise tagged. Some of which were Taylor Moton, the offensive tackle from the Panthers, receiver Allen Robinson for the Bears, safety Justin Simmons from the Broncos, safety Marcus May from the Jets, offensive tackle Cam Robinson from the Jaguars, receiver Chris Godwin from the Buccaneers, the Super Bowl winning Buccaneers at that, and guard Brandon Sheriff from the Washington football team. There's a few of these that surprised me, and there's a few that didn't. But there's a lot of players that didn't get franchise tagged that I'm excited for come free agency. So to start it off, the Bucs, they surprised me with franchise tagging Chris Godwin. Honestly, if I was the Bucs, would have let him walk, and probably franchise tagged Shaq Barrett or Levante David. I originally was saying Levante David, he would have been my pick. But then after they franchise tagged Chris Godwin, they went and signed an extension with Levante David for 2 years, $25 million. So I was like, okay, that's a really good move. Why not franchise tag Shaq Barrett and try to keep that front seven together as much as possible? Like, I feel like if anyone was more replaceable out of all those 3 players, it probably was Chris Godwin, because Antonio Brown is most likely going to come back on a 1-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, there's they have some pieces on the roster that have some promise, and the draft class is deep at receiver at that too.
Yeah. I'm not too surprised. I wasn't too surprised with the Chris Godwin one. It seemed that as soon as the season ended, they had every intention of retaining him any way possibly that they could.
Yeah.
And that I mean, it's seemingly everybody's seemingly in agreement that he seems to be Brady's favorite target, so that might have a lot to do with it. Keeping Tom Brady happy and obviously, keeping, the guy that his go-to guy around. It was probably important to them. So that didn't surprise me too much. Also, I'm very happy about one that isn't on this list, Leonard Williams from the Giants. Got franchise tag.
That's not the one I was going
Okay.
with. But.
Leonard Williams got franchise tag. I know a lot of Giants fans don't care too much about Leonard Williams. They wish the sack numbers were up. I do too. Trust me, I do too. But the Giants need a guy who's going to create pressure. And out of every defender we have currently on our roster, he's the best at doing that. And he might not get the sack numbers, but he creates a lot of QB pressures. He helps his teammates get their sack numbers because, obviously creating pressure on the other side, he requires a lot more attention. I'm not saying he's the Giants guy. The Giants still need an edge rusher, but I do think, if we end up getting an edge rusher, whether through the draft or free agency, whatever, I think he is a good, partner for that player, especially because he is so good at creating pressure. So that one I was very happy about.
The only issue with that for me, I have no problem retaining him at all. It was just the fact that we didn't sign him to a long-term deal prior to the deadline. I feel like we waited kind of last minute to kind of make some moves or make when I say moves, get any closure on where we stood in terms of contracts. Now that we franchise tagged him, we're paying him around $19.5 million, $20 million.
Yep.
Because it's the second year franchise tagging him. I just wish we did something similar to what the Cowboys did with Dak, is sign him to a long-term deal, saves money now for the cap hit this year, and possibly use that franchise tag for a Dalvin Tomlinson, who I think is valuable. I think he's in a similar predicament with the Giants that we were in when we had Linval Joseph, and we let him walk, and then he went to Minnesota and balled the fuck out. So I don't want to get rid of Dalvin Tomlinson, but it's seeming like he might be out the door. And it hurts to say, but I'm happy to get Leonard Williams back because of his versatility. He can play inside, he can play out. He's very impactful. His stack numbers technically aren't there, but he's putting quarterback pressures, and that's exactly what we need.
Yeah.
But the reason I didn't mention him though is because he's a Giant. But but the one I'll tell you the one that I like the most and the one that surprised me the most. So the one that surprised me the most wasn't Chris Godwin. So the one that surprised me the most was Cam Robinson. I didn't expect him to get franchise tagged at all, but the Jags probably looked at the market and, first pick, they needed to protect their quarterback, and they were like, we really have no better other options besides Cam Robinson, so let's just give him another chance. But the one person that didn't get franchise tagged that I'm ecstatic about is receiver Kenny Golladay of the Lions, because you know why. The Giants tried to get him at the trade deadline, and it didn't work out. But now he's a free agent, and I really hope the Giants somehow create enough cap space to pursue this man, because we need him badly. He can have a similar impact to what Plexico Burrs had on Eli Manning when we added him in free agency. Please, just do everything you can to grab him, because if you get Golladay, it gives you the opportunity to not go receiver in the first round. Mm-hmm. And even if you still want to go receiver in the first round, you get Kyle Pitts, a Jalen Waddle, a Devontae Smith to go opposite of him. This offense is taking a whole 360.
I agree. I mean, 100%. Also, I think that was kind of the reason I was a little upset about the Bears tagging Allen Robinson. I love Allen Robinson. He's another guy that I would like for the Giants to go after. But sure. I was very happy about the Golladay thing as well. Like you said, we need a wide receiver one. I'm also happy about the obviously this isn't 100% certain yet, but Odell's future in Cleveland seems to be uncertain. So who knows? Maybe the Giants get him at a bargain price with, obviously his health issues.
I hope,
Kenny
but it's not gonna
Galladay,
happen.
and then maybe go offensive line. That offense is shored up. I don't
Listen,
know.
so I would love Odell back, but with Gettleman there, I don't know if he pulls the trigger. But that's also what surprised me about the Godwin thing, because Brady's talking about him wanting Odell in Tampa. So if you go get Odell, why bring Chris Godwin back? Like, just let him walk, and you could get someone else. But I was with the Kenny Galladay news. I was upset that Allen Robinson and Chris Godwin both got franchise tag, but now it puts Galladay as most likely the number one receiver in free agency, which means he's gonna get paid. And the Giants, with little to no cap space, they're not gonna win. A bargain.
No. Yeah,
They're not gonna win a bidding war. We're not gonna get him for a bargain. So it's like, if those two came out, Galladay was either gonna be the number 2 or number 3 receiver, and we could have got him for a reasonable deal. But now, it hurts to say, but it is what it is. But I would love to get Odell back, but
it's a little odd to me that the Lions didn't, trade with the Giants prior to the deadline when the Giants were calling, especially now and seeing that they didn't tag Galladay. So it's like, you just let them walk.
It's probably because their asking price was too much for the Giants to give up, because the Giants have little to they have little draft capital, so they probably weren't willing to give up as much draft picks as the Lions would have wanted. But we talked about a bloodbath earlier in the episode, and the bloodbath has begun. Cap casualties are happening, one of which is a Giant. That hurts me to say, but Kevin Zeitler, our best offensive lineman, was cut. And it saves around $10 million, but he's also our best offensive lineman, so it hurts to say. But other than Kevin Zeitler, you got receiver John Brown from the Bills. You have Malcolm Butler, the cornerback from the Titans. You have Kenny Vaccaro, the safety from the Titans. You have cornerback Janoris Jenkins from the Saints. Receiver Emmanuel Sanders from the Saints. Cornerback A.J. Bouye from the Broncos. Linebacker Calvin Noy of the Dolphins, which surprised a lot of people because he literally just signed a multi-year deal contract last free agency. And he played well. So it didn't really make sense why they released him, besides, them saving a few mil. And then recently, both starting offensive tackles of the Chiefs that didn't play in the Super Bowl, Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher, both dealing with injuries, got cut by the Chiefs to save some cap. So I don't want to hear anyone complaining about, players wanting to play for certain teams or asking for too much money, because it's a business deal. Like they say when teams make the moves. So it's a business deal.
100%.
These guys were hurt, and they had no issue with cutting them. And that's what blows my mind. I think the Chiefs realize that they just need to move in a different direction when it comes to the offensive line. But yeah, it's a business. It is
a business, 100%. But I mean, there's some good players here in the cap casualty. I mean, we were just talking about how the Chiefs need to shore up some offensive line. They let go 2 of their guys, but Kevin Zeitler is also a guy there who can help that offensive line on the Chiefs. So I mean, that'd be interesting to see if maybe he ends up going now to the Chiefs. Because I did talk about them possibly going that in the draft to help their offensive line later in the draft. But if they can do that there, they can go a different direction in the draft. Maybe get some help on the defensive side of the ball. I like Calvin Noy. He, like you said, he didn't play bad. My team needs linebackers. It'd be nice to see the Giants definitely make a move and try to stay busy.
He has a connection with us.
Yeah.
You got Joe Judge, coach on the Patriots.
Yeah.
Then you have him who played for the Patriots. And last year when he was a free agent, there was ties that they were talking about the Giants. He was in an interview and he was talking very highly of Joe Judge and how well of a coach he really is. And then even at the end of the interview, he even gave us a "Go Giants." He said "Go Giants," and then he started laughing because he was trying to pitch.
He saw the future. You know what I mean?
And now he should be wearing blue, saying "Go Giants," because the Giants, that's someone who's very versatile. That we need linebackers, we need pass rushers, why not go and make the move? I mean, he's not going to be the most expensive guy on the market, especially with all the names that are available. So he could be a guy if we created enough cap space to go and grab.
I agree. No, I completely agree. But it's gonna be interesting. It's definitely gonna be interesting. I know free agency opens up soon. Um, Obviously you have all these people who are already free agents, and then now you have all these cap casualties, guys who are gonna be basically there for, teams to try and I think either pick up on waivers or try to re-sign them as free agents. So it's gonna be a fun little NFL offseason. We got the pro days that have been happening. I don't know
Excited.
how or if they're doing a combine this year, but even just seeing
No combine.
no combine,
It's
so
virtual.
that's
So
what I'm
so
saying.
they're
So
basically doing their combine is basically just virtual interviews,
okay, yeah.
and then and then they're basically going off the numbers off their pro days.
Yeah. So we've already seen, like we talked about, we've already seen some players' draft stocks go up because of their pro days. So, it's gonna be a real interesting NFL offseason. It's gonna be fun.
For
I hope
sure,
my team.
and
I hope my team stays busy.
I hope so too. I mean, the few cap casualties that we mentioned, there's a lot more. There's just we don't have enough time to name them all. But those were like the ones that highlighted thus far. There's still more to come. And like you mentioned, free agency is right around the corner. Negotiations begin next week, March 15th.
So we'll be
But
talking
it,
about
it,
that.
it doesn't officially begin until the new year starts, and that's March 17th at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So once that opens up, the bidding wars will begin. But like you mentioned, pro days have started, so it's draft season. We just had our mock draft 1.0 not that long
Go
ago. Go
watch
check
that
that
if you
out.
haven't.
It's definitely a fun little episode. We had fun recording it. We're definitely going to be doing a 2.0 very soon. And when I mean very soon, it's the draft's at the end of April. So we're gonna do something a
Very
little like
very soon.
we might do a similar mock draft with just us. We might invite some guests and have them draft for some certain teams.
Like
It's for us to know and for you to
we
find
might be
out. So
having
just stay
some. We
tuned.
might be having some trades.
Oh, we're definitely having trades this
Oh,
time around
definitely having trade. Okay.
because we need to be more realistic. We need to be more
Okay.
realistic because there's some teams where we felt like we were stretching when we are reaching for certain picks
Mhm.
and we felt like they should have traded back. So we'll make some trades. Um, like I said, it's for us to know and for you to find out. So stay tuned and check out 1.0 mock draft out, and 2.0 should be out soon. But until then, enjoy the off season. Draft season, free agency coming up, trades. Because Patriots traded for Trent Brown. I thought that was a really good trade.
Yeah,
I
it
want to
was.
mention that at the end of the episode. And I forgot who else. Oh, the Isaiah Wilson tackle from the Titans got traded to the
Yep.
Dolphins for a 7th round pick. So I think that was a good move for the Dolphins. So I just want to mention that at the end of the episode. But enjoy the offseason while it lasts. We'll be talking about NFL a lot in the near future just because it's just heating up and it's just getting interesting. So until next time, peace.
Peace.
You're talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. My boy's talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love.